All right, everyone, we are back, and I think for today we have one of the most highly anticipated videos in this series. It's definitely one that I think people are going to get the most of, and that's going over sizing, resizing, and scaling your images. So we're going to jump into it by going image size, and this is a sample photo we have here on the screen. It's taken directly from the camera. It hasn't been cropped or edited. It's just been imported into Photoshop here. And what we have is, we can check out our document size, which is 13.333 by 20 with a resolution of 300. Now, when you're setting up images to send in for printing, the typical sizes that you're going to want to send in might be a 16 by 24, 1620, 20 by 30, 2436. And the most common issue that we see is that sizes are off. That it's a person might want to order a 16 by 20 and the image is 16 by 24. So we're just going to go over how to get the sizes exactly how you want them, and then they'll be ready to send in. So as I mentioned, we have a 13.333 by 20 image right now with 300 pixels per inch. And the two main parts that you're going to want to really check out here would be the constrained proportions and resample image. So right now we have constrained proportions on, which is going to lock in your height and your width. So if I switch the width to 16, it's going to make the height 24 automatically. If I make it, for example, a 20, it's going to be 30. So when you have your images coming right out of the camera, they're always going to conform to that 3:2 ratio, meaning the longest side will be the 3 and the shortest side would be 2 ratio-wise. So we'll get to that in a second, but it basically works out to a 0.6666 ratio. So for example, if you wanted a 16 by 20 image that you were sending in, we'll put that at 16 there, and it comes out to 24. So we're going to need to crop out 4 inches to achieve that. So if you want that, we'll go and leave that there, hit OK. And there's this tool right here on the side is your cropping tool. And at the top here, it gives us our resolution, so we'll keep that at 300. So for our width, we're going to want 16 and hit enter. And for the height, we're going to want 20 and enter. I'll just zoom out a bit. And now what we have is, we'll go up to this top left corner and we'll hold down the mouse and we'll drag and drop down. And what that does now is it'll give us a preview of where the crop will be. So if we want the crop entirely at the bottom, it will crop off 4 inches of the 16 by 24 to make it a 16 by 20. We can play around with it and move it down. Obviously that doesn't look good compositionally, which is one of the harder parts, or one of the most problematic parts that we get on our end when we're going to print something and someone wants a certain size, is that it won't lend itself to a crop. So that's one of the reasons I picked this image, is that it doesn't really lend itself to a crop, which is why having the sizes exactly how you want them right off the bat will definitely help, so you don't get that pesky email from us saying the sizes aren't proportional, or can we crop, can we not crop, do you want to resend it, crop and resend. So there's that. Also what you can do too is if you grab any corner of this, you can pull it in to get a perhaps more desirable crop. So if we did have to crop, maybe you'd want to go in on the faces a little more, make that the focal point if the whole image didn't work out crop wise the way you wanted it. As you can see at the bottom here, it kind of crops off their hands, which is why we wouldn't recommend a crop on this one. So we're just gonna not apply those changes. And yeah, so let's get into the next section here. All right, so getting back here, let's go back to image size. And as I was mentioning before, the two things that you're going to want to really pay attention to is the constraint proportions and the resample image. As I mentioned, the constraint proportions will keep your image proportional. If we unlock it, it makes all these sizes here independent. So if we wanted to, say, attempt to squish this to a 16 by 20, we could delete that, punch in the number 20, hit enter, and as you can see, it really squishes the image. Sometimes that works to a degree on certain images where if it's an inch out, for example, it's not as bad. But on this one, it definitely made it really squished. So let's go back to image size. And for the resample image, we don't want to resample it. We want to have that off so that it locks all three of these in document size here. So it's going to lock the height, the width, and the resolution all together. So that way it's not going to add or remove any pixels to the resolution. It's going to keep it proportional to 300. So at 16 by 24, it's 300. So if we make it a 20 by 30, it's going to drop to 240. So it's going to go down in resolution, but it's going to make the image bigger. It's not going to add or remove any pixels. It's just going to re-massage what's already there. So if we wanted to make it an 8 by 12, it would be double the resolution of a 16 by 20. So that's a good way of showing too how it's not adding or removing anything. It's just making your image a lot more higher res because you're dropping the size. If you do want to, say we did want to make this image a 20 by 30, we would be making it a 20 by 30. It's adding more pixels, as you can see in the pixel dimension. So right now it's 6,000 by 9,000 at 20 by 30. And if we go back to 1624, it's 48 by 72. So by not locking in this third resolution bar here, when you resample, it's going to add or remove pixels, which sometimes can make your images grainy or give them that pixelated look. So if you are going to attempt to bump it that way, you can go here to the smoothers. So if you're going to make it larger and it's going to add some pixels, you definitely want the bicubic smoother, which it even has in brackets here, best for enlargements. So then we can go here, click that, make that 20 by 30, and it'll bump it up a bit more, and it'll make it a little smoother transition because it is adding some additional pixels. And for the final section of this one, I've prepared a little chart here. And this goes over, this is right off our price list. And as you can see, it has the sizes color-coded. So we color-coded the sizes to help with sizing. So anything in blue, as you can see here, anything highlighted in blue will be the ratio that it comes right out of your camera. So when you take a photo with your camera, you import it into Photoshop, they should conform to this 3:2 ratio of sizes. So it's going to be your 8 by 12s, your 12 by 18s, your 16 by 24s, 20, 30, 24, 36s. So these are going to be your the most friendly sizes when you're putting in an order. These are the sizes where there's going to be no cropping involved on your end or our end to achieve. And let's pull up the calculator here. So if we go 8 by 12, it works out to that 0.666 ratio, like I mentioned earlier. Same thing, 12 by 18, 666 ratio, 16 by 24, 666 ratio. So they all conform to that nice camera 3:2 ratio. All the other sizes here, your 5 by 7s, 8 by 10, 11, 14, 16, 20, 18, 24, 30, 40, 36, 48s are all going to need cropping either on your end or our end. So if you like going full frame images, if you're making your compositional choices when you're shooting as opposed to in post when you're doing it in Photoshop, these 5 sizes are definitely going to be your best friends. They're definitely going to be handy. They fit the same sizes and ratios between each other, so it's definitely going to be less headaches going forward by going with one of these 5 sizes. It also works out nice too if you're building your price list or if you're building a studio samples. These sizes are quite nice too, as opposed to any of the non-highlighted prices you see on this diagram here, just because anytime you pick a 1620 and 11 by 14, for example, you're always going to have to be cropping. So if you have a wall sample and it's a 16 by 20, every single time a person orders that image, you're going to be cropping. And when it comes to editing, when you're doing albums and wall art, the less cropping for every single image is definitely going to be beneficial. It's going to save you a lot of time. So definitely we always recommend one of these 5 sizes just because the ratios are nice and easy and there's no cropping. Alright, so we are going to wrap up the video there. It's getting to be a bit long, but I do hope it was informative and that it tackled some of the questions and concerns that we've been getting feedback on when it comes to sizes and cropping and rescaling images. So we're going to sign off there, and if anyone does have any topics for future episodes, you can always email us at info@laminartindustries.com. We still have a few videos in mind, but we are always open to suggestions. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.